This is me.
Well, as you can see up there, there's a bald eagle's nest.
It was the first time I had ever seen a bald eagle in the wild. I was 51 years old. I had waited 2 hours to film an eagle returning to the nest, and when it did, my camera went out of focus. So I waited another 2 hours. And then I got my shots. It was a beautiful thing to witness. I guess you could say I was a little excited. But my excitement would soon turn to shock when I noticed a for sale sign and a backhoe in front of the nest a few weeks later. It's like a construction truck here. I'm wondering if it has anything to do with the spot where the eagle's nest is. Yep, there's someone there right now. They're doing some kind of construction right now. This is how our story began. I wrote a blog post about what I had seen, and it quickly went viral. City officials responded to local newspapers, telling them that they were just installing utility lines along the road, and that the eagles were fine. But according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, no work of this kind should occur within 660 feet if it is in clear view of an active nest. A spokesman for the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries told one paper that the work was outside the 660-foot protected buffer. His story soon changed after a visit to the site, when he acknowledged that the distance was half that. Yet both agencies still gave the work a go-ahead. And so, while the eagle sat on fragile eggs, the digging and pounding continued for several weeks. Only one paper warned the city that allowing the work during nesting season might be a bad idea, especially when it came to public perception. It's only fitting that our city of Manassas, Virginia, located just 32 miles from the nation's capital, has its own pair of bald eagles. After all, the bald eagle is also the mascot for our local high school. And a statue of an eagle honoring local veterans sits just a block away. Manassas is a vibrant community with a historic past. 2 major Civil War battles were fought here. At times, it can seem like the picturesque model for hometown USA. There's always something happening in the quaint old town cross streets. But it also suffers the same woes of many surrounding communities. Excessive development and overpopulation has led to congestion and gridlock. Architectural landmarks are quickly being replaced with high-density housing units and industrial complexes. It's a city that's literally tearing itself up. Luckily, our eagle pair chose to build their nest at the edge of Cannon Branch Fort Park, one of the many battlefield landmarks. Since 2012, the pair has successfully raised 7 eaglets. The eagles had grown accustomed to the noise from overhead planes and helicopters, and from the nearby railroad where trains can pass through several times an hour. But the city and developers had other plans in mind that would dramatically clash with onlookers and place our eagles in great jeopardy.
All this clearing taking place right now in front of the bald eagle's nest right there. Just talked to one of the guys that's working on it. He wasn't even told there was a bald eagle's nest. He also just pointed out that it looks like one of the branches may have been broken there. So all this clearing's been taking place probably for a couple of days or maybe a week or so. And it's right next to a bald eagle's nest, Manassas, Virginia.
I love me an eagle.
Yeah, have you seen them flying?
I have not heard them. I was out here, did the flagging for clearing about a week ago and didn't hear anything. But damn if you're not right that looks to me like an eagle's nest.
So did they tell you that was there when you were clearing?
Absolutely not.
Virginia residents are concerned about a construction project taking place in their backyards. They fear it could directly impact several bald eagles.
A lot of citizens that are outraged.
We obtained this year-old.
This is when we found out about the letter. Fish and Wildlife had issued a letter in July of 2015 to the developers of 2 mixed-use warehouses, stating that clearing and grading and building construction should only take place between August 1st and December 1st of 2016.
But as you can see, we found many trees in this property already uprooted from the ground.
Problem is, the developers began clearing 2 weeks early while the young eaglets relied on their parents in the nest. And the adult eagles remain at the nest year-round.
There were some eagles out here this morning. The juvenile was spotted yesterday, and the adult.
This is not just come in, lay your eggs, and when it's over and done, walk off. This is their home.
Locals want to know why the government would allow this to happen earlier than it was supposed to.
If the Fish and Wildlife are not going to protect the national bird, who is?
Here's a guy spraying some stuff. Truck is right about ready to go right underneath the nest.
City officials tried to skirt the blame for the early start by telling papers that they thought it was just minor prep work. Still, we wondered why any building was given the go-ahead in front of an active nest in the first place.
Okay, what's your name?
Amber Taylor.
Okay, Amber, you're out here right now and you're documenting what's going on with the construction here.
I am.
About the eagles, and you've been taking pictures of the eagles for quite some time. What do they mean to you, the eagles?
You know, it's always a symbol of freedom. It's a symbol of our country, our national bird. They were protected for a very, very, very long time, so it's just one of those animals that everyone in the United States can relate to. I have been photographing this specific pair for about 2 years now. I've watched 2 sets of babies fledge, and you know, this set this year and the set last year, and they've kind of become part of my life and what I do. So in addition to other things that I photograph, and you know, they're part of my routine, and I check on them. I feel protective of them, and to come over here and to see their habitat just completely destroyed, to watch everything that they've known to build here. They come back to this nest, they stay in this nest, they're here almost year round. They have nothing left. There's nothing here. They're gonna leave. How do you keep them here? What's the incentive? This is supposed to be peaceful. It's supposed to be peaceful for us to watch them, and it's supposed to be peaceful for them to live in.
And do you think the city cares about what's going on here?
I think people want to have you believe that they care. I think they've been programmed to say the right things when you call them or email them. They'll tell you what they're supposed to tell you, but I haven't gotten any warm fuzzies.
All right, thank you.
In a deal with the Fish and Wildlife Service, major work on what will become 2 office buildings will be delayed until August and end in December, a month earlier than initially planned, to prevent disturbing nesting eagles.
Through our repeated pressure and media coverage, the work abruptly halted for the final week of July.
So what do you think about what's going on here?
I'm saddened. I'm disappointed. I'm disgusted. Every time I come out here, I have a hard time even putting into words how I feel.
And how long have you been following the eagles?
Years. Several years.
Do you think this construction is going to have any impact on the nesting?
It already has. I mean, it's had impact on the eagles' behavior, I believe. Nesting, yeah, I'm not entirely confident that the eagles will be back.
Once more people got wind of what was happening and construction resumed, the floodgates of concern opened wide.
It's right at the base of the tree. You gotta be kidding me. There's the eagle's nest right there. Look at that. And what did you think today when you came out and saw the eagles?
I'm very disappointed and hurt, and I just cannot believe that this is where the government is right now.
What did you think when you first saw the construction here?
I was shocked. With as much land that there is around here, I was shocked, and I thought it's just a matter of time before they destroy the nest.
It's just absolutely awful. It breaks my heart.
Was this a shock to you, seeing it?
We expected it, but it was much worse than we expected. This is atrocious. They seem to be playing free and easy with federal laws.
I just feel like this shows just how inept and how much money talks for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, because they can't even follow their own regulations. Anyone who knows anything, bald eagles are protected by 3 laws, and they're not being protected in any way.
Not even following like a 300-foot buffer, but they're not following any buffer. It's almost, if you look, it's like it goes to the base of the tree. There's nothing of a buffer at all between the construction and the nest.
Do you think the developer should be fined for starting 2 weeks early?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If they're going around the system, absolutely should be fined.
I think the contractor should be fined. I think the person who owns the ground should be fined. I think it should all just go away.
You know, people wonder why wildlife, bears are in their backyard and stuff now, and all these animals, there's nowhere for them to go.
Yeah, this is sad. When I saw them put up this fence, I thought, I just hope they're doing a small parcel and not going all the way back to that tree. So.
A coalition of us began monitoring the nest on a daily basis. The eagles left during work hours and often wouldn't return until late in the evening after the workers were gone. The only official response from the city was that they were following Fish and Wildlife's lead. Ironically, they posted texts from the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act a year prior, warning people to remain at a distance and not to disturb the nest. Now they were allowing a full-on assault on the habitat. To understand the 3 federal laws that govern bald eagles today, you have to look back at the eagle's tumultuous history. It is estimated that there were close to 500,000 bald eagles in the United States at the time of Columbus. Even though the bald eagle was designated as a national bird in 1782, the hunting of eagles was rampant by the mid to late 1800s. Thousands of eagles were killed in Alaska alone because fishermen felt they were a threat to their daily catches. In 1900, the Lacey Act became the first federal law to protect plants and wildlife. It came about in part from the growing trend of using bird feathers as fashion accessories in women's hats. This practice nearly wiped out the Florida egret population. The Lacey Act made it a crime to sell or distribute protected species across state borders that were in violation of state, tribal, or U.S. laws. Unfortunately, that left a loophole for distribution between states that had no such protections. The 1918 Migratory Bird Treaty Act took care of that. The statute made it unlawful, without a permit, to pursue, hunt, take, capture, kill, or sell birds listed as migratory birds. Finally, the Bald and Golden Eagle Protection Act of 1940 sought to protect eagles because of their national significance.
DDT is not a repellent, however. It kills, surely, but slowly.
As most people know, the bald eagle population dramatically plummeted in the 1950s and 60s because of the introduction of the pesticide DDT.
Second problem is the reduction or inhibition of reproduction in birds, particularly birds of prey and seabirds, and this leads to a decline in their population.
It's estimated that there were only 480 nests in the lower 48 states in the early 60s. DDT caused thinning of the eggshells, which were then crushed by the tending adults. A ban on DDT in 1972, along with the bald eagle's inclusion in the endangered species list in 1967, helped the eagle population begin to recover. Yet even with all these laws, today only 1 of every 2 eaglets makes it past 1 year, and only 1/3 reach adulthood when they can mate and reproduce. Most eagles are killed by accidental trauma or poisoning. And since bald eagles were removed from the endangered species list in 2007, habitat loss has become a significant threat.
Here we have a groundbreaking ceremony on August 3rd, 2016 at the site of the Eagle's Nest. The mayor is there and some other people who like buildings more than they like animals.
They don't want it. Eagles! E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles!
Knowing how much the residents opposed what was happening to the eagles, it was shocking to see our elected officials celebrating in this way.
No, they leave the tree. You see the nest? Eagles! Eagles!
They have to leave the tree because it's an active nest, but all the trees they used to sit in, most of them are gone.
Afterward, a councilman gave us a program of the event.
I'd love to see it.
There's an artist rendering of it, obviously. It doesn't exist yet.
May I have this? Sure.
Our mayor couldn't be bothered to address our concerns.
Here's what's going to replace the habitat in front of the Eagle's Nest. Right there.
From the moment the first backhoes arrived, we began contacting various wildlife organizations for assistance. We first reached out to the American Eagle Foundation. We made phone calls, sent emails, and posted on their Facebook page. A lot of people posted on their Facebook page asking for help. I even included the foundation in a blog post along with one of their promotional videos.
Save
but we received no assistance from them. Same goes for Defenders of Wildlife, the Audubon Society, the National Wildlife Federation, and many more. None of the organizations that openly touted bald eagle protection and solicited for donations on behalf of bald eagles came to our rescue. It was a shock to us all. We already couldn't trust the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to do the right thing.
This is directly below the nest right now.
Where else were we to turn?
Creating an all-inclusive environment in your community. Hi and welcome.
And then we got wind of something else on the horizon, a second blow to the eagles. While developers were tearing apart their nesting habitat, the city unveiled plans to develop around the eagles' main food source at Cannon Branch Pond. The pond resides less than half a mile from the nest. Plans were being made to tear up the land to the pond's edge to construct more office and retail buildings, a hotel, and a brewery. Across the street, developers sought to build 270 high-density housing units.
Main Street in Old Town Manassas.
Councilman Mark Wolf promoted his so-called Gateway Project on a Comcast Newsmakers program.
The largest development project in the history of the city of Manassas. Total value when we're done of almost $250 million.
And that master plan sort of looks like a bird's eye view of everything that's going on.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I just said it's just tremendously exciting.
What are some of the things that you are trying to include within this, I guess, environment, if you will?
Well, it's an interesting property, and it's a little bit of a difficult property. It actually has a stormwater retention pond. So what we're doing is taking a necessity of the stormwater pond and making it into an amenity. So we're going to have a development.
The truth is, that pond, built decades before, had transformed itself into a thriving ecosystem. A lot of wildlife depended on it, including our eagle pair. This is where they fed, and taught their young how to do the same. News of this new development became another setback we had to contend with. We wondered why our city would want to tear up more land, especially with so many vacant buildings and spaces just waiting to be leased. A private conversation with another councilman at a local coffee shop revealed that the city of Manassas was in competition with the surrounding Prince William County to be the most economically developed. Their plan for some time was to turn the Gateway Corridor by the local airport into a major commercial and residential hub. What they didn't foresee was a resilient pair of eagles making part of it their home, and how the residents would react to the city's lack of compassion for the birds.
So Doug, what do you think about the construction here with the eagles?
Well, I'm a little disappointed in the fact that they got so close to the nest of the eagles. I wish they would have
stayed away a little bit further. I've been watching them for about 3.5 years. I've seen them with the babies, and I've watched them fly over here several times with fish in their mouth to feed the babies, and it's just a little heartbreaking to see the construction that close.
We've been out here for years watching these eagles. So in the last, about the last month or so, we see them come from the pond, and they'll land in this tree over here, and then they'll fly around the area a little bit. But then we've seen the babies with twigs in their hands heading to that area of woods. I hate to see the construction coming and possibly scaring them off, because it's kind of a treat to come out here and sit and bring the dogs and watch the eagles fly around.
It surprised me that it was as big a development as it looks to be, and that it was allowed to be as close to the trees as it was.
I mean, they're so rare, even though they're making a comeback, they're still a sight that you just don't see too often in the wild.
The bald eagle is the American bird. It represents America. Literally, out of all the birds that exist, that is the one that people are most familiar with. If we can't do it for a bald eagle, then we're basically saying no birds matter, and that's just unacceptable.
They've often been described as majestic, powerful, fierce, spiritual, and simply beautiful. Our fascination with the eagle dates back far before it became the national bird. Eagles are referenced in the scriptures and beliefs of many faiths. The eagle has become the symbol for thousands of businesses. It is the inspiration for our sports teams. It's used in our military emblems and on our currency.
Works. Check this out.
Advertisers are quick to cash in on the eagle's significance.
Colorful American eagles revealed. Amazing.
Its influence can be seen in many ways, even in the wing designs on our local police vehicles. For many, the bald eagle has almost a mythical quality. Its rarity is its appeal.
What made you decide to get a bald eagle tattoo?
The bald eagle, to me, is like you have three major iconic images, in my opinion. Statue of Liberty, the American flag, and the American bald eagle. I think it's really difficult, or really almost impossible, to not think about patriotism without picturing the American bald eagle.
What do you like about bald eagles?
It's just amazing if you ever spend the time to watch them. Like, look here in this photo. I mean, look, like if you see the series and how they come down to eat, right? And they swoop down. Just the similarities, like I'm a big airplane buff, and just how they use their wings. You see here how the feathers are turned back up, how they can just slow themselves down, man. And they're just amazing creatures. You watch them fly, they make so many different shapes. The body, how they just come up, and they just turn, and they're just awesome to watch, man. And they're beautiful, so. A great subject to photograph.
So mine are the classic traditional American ones, and that's predominantly the style of tattooing that I do. And the eagle is such a classic traditional design, so that's why I got mine. The eagle and the snake that I have is it's a good luck symbol. It's through many cultures. They have, whenever you see an eagle carrying a snake in the sky, it's a symbol of good luck. On any given day at the shop, you'll have an eagle in the design. Goes with Japanese tattooing, the eagle. With traditional American, there's always an eagle in patriotic designs. And just being out here, a lot of color, photorealistic nature designs. We use eagles and the eagle head.
Have you ever seen a bald eagle in the wild?
No, I have never seen a bald eagle in the wild.
Have you ever seen a bald eagle in the wild?
I have not, no.
Never?
Never.
When I was a kid, yeah. I'm from the mountains of Pennsylvania, so.
And that was how long ago?
Jesus, I've been here for 17 years, so before that.
Wow.
This one's from a dad's buddy who passed from cancer, and he liked riding motorcycles.
And how did you get the bald eagle tattoos, and what do they mean to you?
Oh, well, I'm a U.S. citizen, so it's, I guess, the United States, freedom, and I just like how badass eagles are.
Such a powerful image, and it's one of those designs that probably will carry through the ages of tattooing into the next 100 years and 100 years after that too, as well.
I began to wonder if our country had developed more of an affinity for the image of the eagle than the living creature itself.
EagleBankCorp.com, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Has the eagle become just another marketing prop, a patriotic ploy, with the real-life bird getting the raw end of the deal? As work continued at the nesting site, we began noticing unsafe behavior among the various contractors. Many weren't wearing hard hats or eye protection around dangerous equipment and materials, which would be a violation of OSHA requirements. On August 18th, we caught them pumping water filled with construction debris directly into the public park. We had to call the city to get them to stop. It seemed that every time we showed up, there'd be something else making the situation worse for our eagles. I later learned that the developers had disturbed the eagles as early as April, with a soil sampling machine pounding away at the base of the nest tree. This would have been during nesting season, when the two eaglets were just a month old. An onlooker reported the parents squawking and temporarily abandoning the nest. This Google Earth image, taken a week later, shows the property after the sampling machine. You can clearly see the path it took. Fish and Wildlife, the city, and the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries were notified, but they took no action to stop it. In the following months, there would be many more violations.
So Jerry, you've come here to take a look at the eagles again today during your lunch hour. What do you think about the construction here?
I'm a bit concerned that it's probably going to cause them to relocate. This is the first and only pair of wild eagles I've ever seen, and I'm 69 years old, so it's been a lot of my life, without ever having come across them. About 3 years ago, on my daily walk up in this direction, I noticed the nest starting, and I've been watching them each year come back since and raise their young. So it's been very enjoyable for me and nice to see the resurgence of some of the bald eagle population. But I guess this may be taken away at this point.
Does it make you sad?
Yes, it does.
Many onlookers recognize the absurdity of the situation, and how Fish and Wildlife didn't anticipate how the warehouses could affect the nesting eagles once completed.
So, nesting season is December to August. This project may be completed December 1st. I doubt it. But there's still going to be traffic. Semis driving in and out. So there's still no buffer. There's no buffer from the tree, which is required during nesting season. Yep. So absolutely nothing has been done the proper way from the very beginning.
With work on the first warehouse in full swing, surveyors began sizing up the land around the pond. Adjacent to the pond's edge is the Cannon Branch Cemetery, established in 1896 by members of the German Baptist Brethren. The cemetery includes soldiers from the Civil War, as well as recent veterans. Our eagles would often perch in the tallest tree just feet away from the plots, as if to honor those who served. Now the horizon for this historic and tranquil resting spot was about to change.
My name is Scott Bowden. This is Danny Bowden.
And Krista J.
So is this the first time you've ever seen eagles?
Yes.
Yes.
What do you think?
They're awesome.
They're awesome.
They're amazing.
Yes.
So how do you feel about this construction?
Kind of feel bad.
I feel bad about it because it's kind of stealing their land.
Yeah, and
Sort of.
they don't go anywhere all year.
I don't think it's necessary at this point in time. I mean, the eagle is our nation's bird. It's a bird, it's our bird for everybody. It represents our country, and I think it's a shame that we put the almighty dollar ahead of our heritage, what represents our heritage, our country.
The eagles continued to work on the nest in the late evenings when they weren't disturbed by all the commotion. But each morning they'd leave as soon as the work crew arrived.
It is 6:30 in the morning. And as you can see, they've already started. And the bird just flew off.
At this point, we decided to take our fight to City Hall. With so much disapproval, we hoped that the public outcry would circumvent the construction, or at least convince the city to put up some kind of protections for the eagles. But a lot would happen in the 5 weeks leading up to the scheduled meeting. Through a Freedom of Information request to Fish and Wildlife, VDGIF, and the city of Manassas, we began learning some interesting facts. A year prior to construction, a representative for the developers pleaded with Fish and Wildlife for an eagle take permit, even though they were given permission to build with the exemption letter. Pete McCabe would like to go ahead with the full application process in addition to the exemption letter that we spoke about. So even if the letter would be sufficiently legal, we would like to go the extra distance and submit a permit application as well. They wanted a permit to protect them from litigation, since the construction was close to the nest and inside the 330-foot buffer. So the developers knew in 2015 that the construction of 2 warehouses would be unpopular among the residents and disruptive to the eagles. Although adjustments can be made on the dates of the work, he is still concerned that there will be strong local opposition to the construction in Manassas. The take permit would have required the developers to implement protections for the eagles, which could include a tree line or alterations to their building plans. You also mentioned that there were additional considerations with pursuing the permit as opposed to the letter, and I think we should have a better understanding of what those are and how to address them. Somehow, and it appears through phone conversations, Fish and Wildlife talked the developers out of the permit and issued the exemption letter instead. Why would an agency in charge of protecting these birds decline the money they'd make from a permit and a guarantee that our eagles would be properly protected? Why did they let the developers get away with absolutely no eagle mitigation plan in place? Once the construction began in July of 2016, an email directly from a Fish and Wildlife representative proved that the developers had jumped the gun on clearing and grading by 2 weeks. Brief synopsis: the developers are not in compliance with the guidance provided by the region. Troy Anderson, Fish and Wildlife biologist. Switch to the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, and the same biologist that misjudged the distance of the trench digging in 2015 also recognized that the developers were at fault. The construction was not supposed to begin before August 1st, but other than that, it is all legal, and I'm staying out of it. Kevin Rose, VDGIF biologist. Even the city of Manassas caught the violation. Pete, just drove by the site and that's more than mobilization. That is clearing and grading. Liz Villa-Gosman, Director, Community Development. Yet this public statement issued by the city would have you think otherwise.
Okay, today is September 14th, 2016. I'm standing in front of the construction of the second office building in front of the Bald Eagle's Nest. As you can see, that slab on the left there is just one slab away from where the tree is in the back there. So once that second slab goes up there next to it, you won't be able to see the nest anymore. It's just really sad to watch this going on right now. I can't tell you how sad it is.
The noise at the nest site at times was almost deafening. Sometimes it would continue well into the night when the eagles were trying to roost. What was most disturbing was how the work crew would park the large crane directly in front of the nest. It was as if they were intentionally trying to scare off our eagle pair.
That's them. Hear it?
We got our first glimmer of hope for the eagles when we witnessed them mating one night.
They're mating. They're mating. Are you getting it, Victor?
Uh-huh. But what would happen to them once the buildings were completed?
As you can see, the nest on the right there is probably at the closest point to the back of the building where trucks will be going through and all sorts of stuff. As you can see here, this is one of those large trees that the eagles used to perch on. Torn down and is thrown over the fence here.
With the eagles gone during the day, I had to see for myself just how close the construction was to the nest tree.
Jesus. It is literally feet away. Look at that. That's it, right there. I'm gonna guess there's about 4 feet between the nest and the development. That's how close they were when they did this. That is ridiculous. Look at that. On October 6th, I spoke face-to-face with a developer. How do you plan on protecting that nest once it's done?
Pardon me?
How do you plan on protecting that bald eagle's nest once it's done?
Don't have any plans whatsoever.
Why does that?
Why should we?
Why should you?
Yeah.
Because it's a national bird.
It's fine like it is. Birds haven't left.
Yeah, but they have to mate too, you know.
Take it up with the Fish and Wildlife. Have we done anything wrong?
Yes, you have.
What have I done wrong?
You've built the thing first of all.
That's not
You
wrong.
did soil sampling when they were
That's
laying
not wrong.
sitting on eggs.
They're still there.
They were sitting on
Are
eggs.
they still there?
They only come back at night.
That's not true. I've been here. Yesterday morning they were here.
They leave
Saturday
when
they
this
were here.
construction comes.
Are they here now?
No, they're not.
Okay. They're still here. You got 50,000 pictures of them
When
still
this
here.
is done, you're going to have trucks in the back unloading and loading
That's
right
true.
below the nest.
The same place where the crane
That is
was.
against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife's policy. You have to be
Then take it up
330
with
feet
them.
away.
I didn't make up the rules.
Well, why didn't you pay attention to that?
I asked Fish and Wildlife. They gave us permission. They told us we can build these buildings as long as we're done by November.
Yeah, but then you use them.
What did they think? We're not going to use them? I sent the site plan for this building to them. They said, yes, you can build it, provided that you have everything done by November 30th. Now, we've spent another $400,000 to build these buildings in that time frame.
You don't care about these eagles, do you?
I don't think we're having any effect on them.
You don't think you're having any?
The only thing we're having an effect on is people who want to see them. Worst case scenario, they go somewhere else and nest. That's the worst case.
No, the worst case is that they sit on the eggs and the truck's unloading and loading on
that's
the other
why we
side.
have to finish by
pound.
November 30th.
You can't drop and pound while they're sitting on eggs 25 feet away.
Fish and Wildlife said we could. There's no mystery to what the buildings were. There's no mystery.
All right. Have a good day.
Do the same.
We obtained the developer's draft permit application and site plans that were submitted to Fish and Wildlife a year prior. They described the buildings as one-story office warehouses, with the nearest point of construction to the nest as 50 feet. From this picture of a game official standing next to the tree, you can clearly see it was much closer. In fact, we feared that some of the roots were destroyed during the initial groundwork.
This is trench digging deep. I wouldn't doubt if down into the roots of that tree. I mean, he's right at the fence.
Luckily, the nest was still viewable from across the street, so we could continue to monitor the eagles.
That are signed up and call on Kaylin Cowards.
Good evening. My name is Kaylin. I'm 14. Worldwide, there are American bald eagles can only be found on the continent of North America. In the early 18th century, the bald eagle population was approximately 500,000. In Virginia, there are only 1,027 breeding pair of bald eagles. Bald eagles are faithful to each other, their nest, and their offspring. They will protect and defend them with their lives. They represent freedom, courage, and strength, and have been the symbol of this country for 229 years. They have no natural predators except man, and it is man that continues to prey upon their existence. This nest is now their only home, and their home has been threatened. The eagles disturbed since mid-July. This is your tree. What are you doing to protect these eagles in their nest?
From an outsider's perspective, it seems like public outcry and opposition to the construction project has fallen on deaf ears. On at least 3 occasions, I know that the city has instigated or allowed the take of these eagles in their nest. The first occasion was soil sampling done in April of this year. The nesting eagles abandoned both of their eaglets in the nest for several hours while soil tamping machinery was literally shaking the ground underneath their nest. The second occasion was allowing construction to begin prior to the end of the nesting season. While the eaglets had fledged the nest, they were still in the habitat and depended upon their parents for experience and food. So allowing this construction to begin early actually forced them to prematurely leave the habitat. The third occasion is the ongoing disturbance to the eagles that is now a daily basis. I've personally watched the eagles flying above their nest with branches and sticks during the work hours, and they're so frightened to come down just into their nest that I've actually watched them myself drop the tree limb in the air and fly off because they don't have the opportunity now to just land in the nest that they've used as their home for the last several years. So again, this is your tree. This tree resides on your property, and this tree is your responsibility.
My understanding of the National Environmental Policy Act is that it requires that all federal agencies prepare environmental assessment and environmental impact statements for environmental effects of a project at a historic location. Is the city in compliance with NHPA and NEPA regarding Cannon Branch Fort? And as some of the speakers prior to me have said, this is your tree. What is being done to protect those eagles? Thank you.
Thank you.
We are Bob Lowell and Ann McIntyre of NEC Corporation. We located by the airport 3.5 years ago. We're a $25 billion company. We chose that position because the eagles were there. We all like the eagles. We've been watching eagles for 3 years, nest, mate, babies, everything. Anyway, they are our national bird. So we really want Manassas to focus on protecting those eagles.
I'm trying not to get emotional because it upsets me that this is what we're doing and that you have left it happen and that the Fish and Wildlife Service has left it happen. But what's done is done. Those buildings are done. But now we're discussing taking and building the Gateway project in front of the ponds that they fish at. Do you take away not only a piece of their habitat, and then we go and we take away their fishing pond? You're leaving them no choice. You're pretty much saying, go ahead and go. We don't care.
For their environment, they should instead be aware of their surroundings and look out for these animals' habitats instead of just building where they want to.
Good job, guys. Good job. Thank you for being here tonight.
Nothing changed for our eagles after the meeting. In fact, things got worse.
This paving is going on right now at night while the eagles were supposed to be up there to nest. You can hear how loud it is.
How you doing?
I'm fine. What are you doing here?
Oh, I'm finishing up paving.
All right.
We'll be back tomorrow. Finish paving the front of the parking lot, and then everything around the back. Hopefully we'll get it all finished up tomorrow.
Tomorrow during the day or at night?
No, during the day.
Good.
buildings.
Do you know about what's back there?
Oh, the bird's nest?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was told about that. We aren't to be walking beyond the parking lot. We're just here to pave the parking lot.
All right. Well, yeah, the parking lot's kind of right below the nest, so.
Yeah.
On the following day, I watched an eagle avoid the nest tree because of the commotion below. And despite what the contractor told me, the paving continued deep into the night again.
Our I-Team investigator Scott Taylor says that a federal lawsuit has now been filed claiming that Uncle Sam is not doing enough to protect our symbol of freedom.
I'm furious that the organization charged with protecting these eagles doesn't care.
On November 1st, Eagle advocate Amber Taylor filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for failing to provide the developers with a protective eagle permit.
I want these eagles to feel safe. I want them to continue to nest successfully, breed successfully, and I want them to do it without any human disturbance.
Naturally, our city had their own take on the properties.
It's a major economic benefit to the city. And so, again, talking U.S. Fish and Wildlife, they don't see the necessary elements.
As this was happening, and with the outside work coming to a close, our eagles faced a whole new round of disturbances.
They have lights on both the buildings now. It is so bright. I don't think the camera quite shows it, but this is what they have to deal with every night while they're at the nest. This is ridiculous.
Then, the people started showing up.
This is people that just decide to pull in to the parking lot to see the eagles.
Once the lot was paved, and without signs warning people to keep away, it soon became a drive-through free-for-all. We found out that the one eagle etiquette sign was put up by a concerned citizen in 2015, not by the city, and it wasn't allowed on the warehouse property where it was needed. Instead, it faced in the opposite direction across the street. Just a few weeks later, work on the Gateway project around the Eagles fishing pond began.
So as I film right now here by the cemetery, there's a couple of guys doing some surveying. And here are the eagles right here. That's what's going to be affected. So here I am on Gateway Boulevard, and they're already digging up trenches now.
It was sad to see another unnecessary development infringing on our eagle's habitat. And all we could do was watch it slowly unfold in front of us.
This is the city of Manassas violating the U.S. Fish and Wildlife order not to do any construction, outside construction, at the location of the Eagles Nest buildings after November 30th.
Oh, hi, this is she. I've had better days. How about you? Yes, sir. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but I'm standing across the street from a nest in Manassas, Virginia. Mr. Pilgrim is aware. I've spoken with him on the phone before. Exterior work was supposed to have been completed and stopped by December 1st. And city workers are out here right now. They actually scared the eagles out of the nest this morning. 7 o'clock I was here and saw both of the eagles bedded down. 7:30 construction crews started up and they're right now installing, looks like street lights, but banging enough that they scared the eagles out of the nest. It is Manassas City. I've actually called and complained to them as well.
Here are the cops here. We're way across the street, just sitting here talking, taking photos from a public sidewalk.
Okay, certainly. And who can I follow back up with?
None of the calls made to the city or U.S. Fish and Wildlife halted the activity.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
This was the same day as the groundbreaking ceremony for the Gateway project. The city had 3 cops follow me to a nearby park.
This is ridiculous. How ridiculous is this?
I guess they were afraid someone might shout out eagles and hold them accountable in front of their investors. But we were just there to document another unpopular development. Nesting was now in full swing for our eagle pair, and their activity continued to draw a following.
What do you like about the eagles here?
Well, I certainly like watching them. They're majestic birds, and watch them raise families here, and even the little eagles growing up and playing tag and chasing each other from the trees when they first fledge, and it's just fun to watch.
What do you think about this construction here?
It's just unreal that a city of 40,000 people can't provide a little bit for our nation's bird.
I used to live in North Carolina, and when I would visit family here, I would drive down, and last year, before the buildings were here, used to set up on the sidewalk and had some pretty good shots. And since then, we have moved here. So I'm hoping to get down here a little more often. As a photographer, we need to be aware of the animals. You need to watch their actions and see if you're starting to annoy the birds, you need to get away. The wildlife is more important than the photograph.
And what do you like about eagles?
Oh, they're just beautiful birds. They're beautiful. I don't see enough of them.
So you're going to follow them as they have their babies and everything here?
I'd like to try, but I'm not getting any closer to them. I guess I'll just have to buy a bigger lens. Which is what I'm willing to do. I'll buy a bigger lens and just keep my distance.
The developers finally posted no trespassing signs, but they proved to be ineffective.
And it just flew away. They have a no trespassing sign there they just put up today. And the reason why is you saw when you went around there, the bird got scared away. And obviously you guys didn't see it and it didn't work.
Made the turn.
Yeah. So we're just going to ask, don't go back there again. All right. Thanks. Have a good day.
Others weren't so understanding.
This is not your property. I'm not going to have you tell me what I can and cannot do.
Another eagle advocate put up this sign at the edge of the property, but it was immediately removed. We were successful in getting the developers to replace the backlights with downward-facing lights, though the city said it was to comply with the city ordinance. Oddly, the rest of the lights remain the same. A female eagle's fertility is triggered by daylight length, so even the new lights, which were still very bright, could possibly alter that cycle. It seemed that the only time our eagles got any peace from the public was during inclement weather. Within days, it was back to the usual chaos.
Everything's for sale. I thought this corner here was.
While we waited for the outcome of the lawsuit, we wondered when, or if, our eagles would lay eggs. They were certainly trying hard enough. But there was still the sad reality of what was happening at their main feeding habitat.
So right now you can see what we're fearing the most is they are now digging up and uprooting trees right by the pond.
Emotions continued to run high back at the nest.
This is our national USA bird. I'm an eagle fanatic. If you see my house, there's eagles flying everywhere. So this is very special for me.
What do you think they can do to protect these eagles here now that the building's here?
You gotta protect them year round. You know, who cares about these buildings? You can put a building anywhere. We're taking homes from these animals to put up a building. Who knows how long it's gonna last? You know, who knows?
And the other issue that you're going to run into is right now the building seems innocuous and unintruding, but what happens when the building gets filled up and people start working here every day and then it becomes a novelty? Oh, let's go out back behind the building and, you know, see what the eagles are doing, and then they have access to walking right up to the tree. And, you know, it just seems like as soon as this building gets filled up, there's going to be all kinds of issues.
How do you think Fish and Wildlife has handled this?
Well, obviously, maybe someone's getting paid. Who knows? But obviously, I don't know what they are doing. Isn't this part of their job? Maybe they need to clean it up and get people who are wanting to do their job at least. I mean, I don't know what they're protecting, but it's not these birds, which are pretty important to us.
Do you think Fish and Wildlife is doing enough to protect them?
I definitely do not think so.
My opinion, they do nothing for the money that's taken. They're supposed to be protecting the animals, and here they're letting them build right up next to a nest, so I'm very disappointed in them. And I'm also disappointed in any of the wildlife organizations that have contributed money to that have allowed this to actually go on also.
I just don't believe that people could come this close to a bald eagle's nest and not realize that this is the American bird. This is what America's all about.
It's a tough call because in some respects, you know, if someone owns that land, it's their land to do with and develop how they wish. But at the same time, it's like, you know, okay, yeah, you can do this. Yes, we can do it, but should we do it? Should it have been allowed? You know, you would wish that they had seen it from a different point of view and more in interest of, you know, taking care of the one pair of eagles that we have here in the city.
So how exactly was this allowed to happen?
After years of careful study, public comment, and planning, the Department of the Interior and the Fish and Wildlife Service are confident in the future security of the American bald eagle.
Here's the bald eagle being removed from the endangered species list at a ceremony on the National Mall in 2007.
After it is delisted, the bald eagle will remain protected by 2 federal laws.
That's Dirk Kempthorne, then Secretary of the Department of Interior, characterized by conservation groups as someone more in favor of commercial interests than protection of wildlife.
I'm happy to be joined by one of our special guests.
And there's Challenger, the mascot for the American Eagle Foundation.
The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has acted to ensure a smooth transition to management under these laws.
He doesn't seem too happy about this.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, I will now affix my signature to the final delisting rule.
Many people believe, as I did, that the delisting was all about the great comeback story from DDT. But ultimately, it came down to a landowner in Minnesota that didn't like a pesky bald eagle on his 7-acre property. Edmund Kontoski, seen here with his book, Makers and Takers, sued Fish and Wildlife to have our nation's bird delisted so he could build 5 residential units on his plots. He felt, as many developers do, that the Endangered Species Act was overreaching. Kontoski won his case. And at that moment, developers around the country rejoiced. And it forever sealed the relationship between the American Eagle Foundation and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. They even got to keep the pen that signed away the eagle's rights. Now I know why they didn't help us. Their showmanship was more important.
A developer is planning to build a big new apartment complex in Broomfield near Stearns Lake. It's going to be a few hundred feet from a bald eagle nest.
Loss of habitat is not unique to our Manassas eagles.
There's so many people that come here that absolutely love these eagles. I think they're very special to this community.
This is a battle being fought all across our country. In Eagle, Idaho, named after our nation's bird, residents sought to save the one remaining eagle nest from developers. Days after a conservation law firm signed on to take the case, the nest mysteriously fell from the tree. In Goose Creek, South Carolina, a logging company was caught removing trees near an active nest.
Well, the eagle nest that was up here has been torn down.
When a concerned citizen pointed out the nest to workers, it also disappeared a few days later.
This right here is the marks where the person climbed up the tree to tear it down. The eagles are gone.
And in Norfolk, Virginia, Eagle advocates have fought for years to protect Dad Norfolk and his offspring after his original mate was run over by a plane at the Norfolk airport.
It is a sad day at the Norfolk Botanical Garden.
The Eagle's Nest, a big draw for visitors, was removed this morning. The city did so at the request of the federal government after concerns.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture removed 9 of his new nest attempts from the Norfolk Botanical Garden because they felt it was too close to the airport runways.
Early this morning, workers took them apart one stick at a time, and the whole process only took a matter of minutes.
A group of Eagle advocates named Eagle on Alliance protested these actions and sued the government and the airport. Even though Dad Norfolk and his new mate eventually relocated to private property, other birds have perished at the airport because recommended deterrents were not put in place.
They're the bald eagles that have been nesting high above the zoo.
We would see the mom eagle come off the nest for 15 to 30 minutes at a time. In previous years,
this is happening more and more frequently.
The Pony Farm pair, as they're nicknamed, have been thrown off by neighboring construction. They even built a second nest, but were scared away so frequently their eggs did not hatch.
At what point in time are we going to quit giving way to the developers, and at what point in time are we going to realize that we only have one Earth?
With our eagles sitting on fragile eggs, it was even more crucial that they not be disturbed. But just 2 days later, this was going on.
Guys working on the roof, and there's the eagle's nest right there.
Turns out cameras were being installed to monitor the nest, probably by Fish and Wildlife.
Right now this is going on January 30th, 2017. A big dumpster being pulled out, and the eagle is sitting on an egg.
But what these cameras would fail to capture was what was happening down below. This would become an all too common occurrence. The Gateway Project had now claimed its first casualties. With the land disappearing around them, much of the wildlife had to seek new homes. Even the eagles couldn't find peace on their pond island.
And now it's flown away. Because of this worker right here.
Anyone that could come close by the nature of their work would do so. But the eagles had more than just people to worry about. Intruders from other regions would have to be chased away. And wind-driven rainstorms sought to topple the nest.
almost staying on the eggs.
But our eagles hung in there. And on March 3rd, their resiliency paid off. We couldn't tell right away how many eaglets had been born, but we knew something was up when the food started rolling in. It was a wonderful sight. But our worries were far from over. Two weeks later, I witnessed one of the new warehouse tenants unrolling large cables directly under the nest. That's when I noticed orange cones below the tree. The workers were kicking the cones and moving them out of the way. This guy even threw something up toward the tree. It turned out that the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service had finally issued a bald eagle permit. It had gone into effect on March 13th, 10 days after the eaglets were born. In response to a local newspaper, a spokesperson for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife admitted, "While the bald eagle pair at the site continues to nest as in previous years, it is possible that the eagles may be disturbed once the Gateway Business Park facilities become fully occupied and functional. The avoidance and minimization measures required by the permit will help reduce the possibility of disturbance, and the permit establishes monitoring requirements to help inform future management efforts." Terry Edwards, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. We obtained a copy of the permit. The orange cones were part of the requirements to prevent parking within 25 feet from the nest. No mowing was to take place within 100 feet. A third party was to monitor the nest and report to Fish and Wildlife after each nesting season. And the warehouse owners were to systematically educate the tenants not to engage in any unnecessary activity by the nest that may disturb the eagles and their offspring. Clearly, someone didn't get the memo. But there was nothing in the permit to keep onlookers at bay. No eagle-specific signs, no gates, no barriers of any kind. And they allowed any roof work during incubation period necessary to uphold contractual obligations to lessees. We would find out what that meant in the coming months. Fish and Wildlife didn't issue any fines for the early start, or the numerous disturbances we witnessed and documented. Amber Taylor and her lawyer agreed to the dismissal of the lawsuit in the hopes that the permit would be adhered to and our eagles would be protected. A few weeks later, we got our first glimpse of the two eaglets in the nest. Commotion from the tenants was starting to pick up.
So there shouldn't be any more confusion. The signs are up. Private property, no trespassing. That means...
And even a shout out from the news media couldn't quell the public disturbances, which were now getting out of hand.
Make sure you stay away from the eagles and their babies. Scott Taylor, ABC 7 News.
you could go a lifetime and not see an eagle's nest, and it's a God-given right, and I live here in Manassas, and I'm allowed, and they're allowed, anybody who wants to see that nest. There used to be an open field, and I took my grandkids, and I know they didn't want you to walk the field, but we're not harming it. They were more concerned that you would hurt the eagles, or you would jar their peace of mind or whatever.
At other nest locations not too far away, it was a different story. Both the nests at the National Arboretum and the Occoquan Bay Wildlife Refuge had proper barriers and notifications in place. I spoke to an eagle advocate at the Occoquan location.
Why do you think Fish and Wildlife puts a lot of signs here to protect these, but in other areas around the country they don't?
Well, I certainly can't speak to what they don't do in the other parts of the country. I know that the folks here have been very sensitive to the wildlife barriers. They've actually observed the activities in the areas. They've pushed the barriers back further. I believe it's my understanding that the federal guidelines are to be 300 feet away from the nest, and these barriers are a greater distance than that.
Do you think it's a funding problem?
That's my thoughts. I don't really know what their resources, but just from observation of seeing how many of the actual Fish and Wildlife people can come out here, you could probably see if you go around and look that the visitor centers aren't often open. And just talking with them, I know they are short-staffed. It's just a difficulty, I think, that they just can't get the amount of people, probably the money that they need. So that's my speculation anyway.
Why were our eagles different? Why didn't they deserve the same amount of protections?
I understand your goal and agenda is to protect the birds. I get it.
Right.
And I know that it's a big concern.
The Manassas police rarely check for trespassers.
This, that, and the other. But again, it is a business park.
But it says private property, no trespassing.
I get it.
Nobody's monitoring that. Nobody's taking care of it.
With the blessing of NEC Corporation, whose office sat across the street from the warehouses, I took it upon myself to put up new warning signs. They soon started to make a difference. But unwelcome truckers under the nest were beginning to take a toll on the adult eagles.
And it just scared the bird away. There's two motorcycles that just went screaming around the back there. They're freaking right underneath the nest. Feet around the base of the nest. The purpose of those cones is to protect those eagles, not for someone to come in, line them up, and use them as a motorcycle racing course. Okay, and
I was clearly shaken by their ignorance.
Okay, so could you please don't do this? Absolutely. All right, now do you guys work here? 25 feet around the basin, right? Yeah, 25 feet around the base. That's the. So you see the eagle right there? Do you see the babies in the nest?
I didn't see that. Wow, you're absolutely right.
Well, that's why they're there. That's why there's cameras there. There's security cameras there.
I eventually convinced them to leave. it was shockingly evident that much of the permit wouldn't be complied with.
Are you frickin' kidding me? Unbelievable.
When I reported these disturbances to Fish and Wildlife, I only received this auto-response email. Our eagles faced other hazards as well.
This is just a huge mess of fishing line. This whole thing is fishing line. Look at this. And here's a lead sinker that can get ingested, cause a lot of problems.
Lead poisoning is one of the leading causes of eagle deaths. Lead is ingested through fish that have swallowed lead sinkers, or from fragmented lead shot in wildlife entrails left behind by hunters. It kills by quickly destroying the eagle's nervous system. A bird can become paralyzed, blind, unable to swallow, unable to fly, or even hold its head up. A sliver of lead the size of a grain of rice can kill a bald eagle within a few days. Many hunters are unaware of the dangers of lead to our nation's bird, even though it's been in the news many times. Switching to lead-free ammunition, like solid copper, or hunting with a bow, are the best ways to prevent these tragic losses. Within this small area, there exists a diverse ecosystem. But the future for many of these creatures and their families has already been determined. Their land is rapidly disappearing out from under them. Lots are for sale, and building has already begun. These animals will be forced into smaller and smaller spaces until they cease to exist. Once land becomes asphalt, it rarely turns back. Four months later, we discovered a dead adult eagle just 2 miles from the nest. So today is December 8th, 2017, and there is a dead bald eagle down here. It's not our eagle pair, but it is sad to see this eagle like this. I suspect it may have been hit by a train. We're going to report it, and hopefully we'll find out what happened to this particular eagle.
You know when they had all the flags in the ground, that day that we were looking at all these poles? They only placed flags after lunch.
Through the combined efforts of a handful of people and those who kept a watchful eye, we have been able to keep our Manassas eagles safe from harm, for now. But we won't always be around. Our eagles are more vulnerable than ever now that they have to travel farther to feed. The nest tree is already showing signs of damage. A future eaglet may fall to its death on the asphalt below before it gets its first taste of freedom. Loud trucks may cause an egg to crack, if they haven't already. And trespassers fishing at the ponds are scaring them away from their food source. The following season, the 2 new eaglets avoided the ponds, where construction was escalating. They abandoned the busy nest area a month early. And in 2019, with a flood of activity by the nest, and still no eagle warning signs on the property to keep onlookers away, this woman beeped her horn while taking pictures. One of the 2 babies died before it was a month old. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and other entities that protect their own interests may say they did the right thing, but we know better. We live in an amazing time. Bald eagles are making a comeback in the lower 48 states. Many in my generation are now seeing an eagle for the first time. It took half a century for me. If development continues at its current pace, there will be more and more clashes with our national symbol. But there are solutions.
If we could be the leaders that other people follow
In
us.
Cape Coral, Florida, residents and city lawmakers valued their eagle population so much that they increased the federal guidelines for construction from 660 feet to 1,100 feet. When developers sought to lessen the distance, the city did not budge.
This is important. I have children, I now have a granddaughter, and I'd hate to be the guy who helped vote to lessen the number of our nation's bird in our city.
We want to not only protect that 600 feet around that nest, but we want to protect more of that area because that's how they're gaining their food and that's their habitat.
It's a big part of what makes us special. It's a big part of what makes people come to Cape Coral. So I'll be voting against this lessening of the protection for our nation's bird. Thank you.
Thank you.
In Centerport, New York, Eagle advocates worked with a utility crew to modify dangerous electrical poles to protect a family of eagles. And educated hunters are making a conscious choice to hunt with lead-free ammunition. Just as we protected the bald eagle and other creatures by banning DDT, we can help them with these new threats. But it will require some changes. We, as humankind, need to control our own population growth, to set aside land that will never be developed, and to rethink how much personal space we really need. We, the people, will have to protect these birds and other creatures that we share this planet with. It's up to us, you and me, to raise our voices and make it known what is important. For these birds are both our national and natural treasure.
The bald eagle nest is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'm a Native American. We come by here all the time just to sit and watch the eagles. There he is.
There, you're coming in now to land. Isn't that pretty right at top? That must be Papa. It's really something to see.
I'm just glad they're staying there.
Yeah, stay there. Don't get hurt. So, it's they ought to be proud, Manassas area, that they're here. Yep, very nice.
It's okay. It's okay. Here you go. Here you go. There you go.